My name is Jeff Anderson. I am one of the lawyers for the brave survivor that brought this case against the Vatican in 2002. Also present with me here by video conference is one of my esteemed co-counsel, Professor Marci Hamilton of Cardozo, and she will be addressing us today. Also present is Terry Mckiernan, M-C-K-I-E-R-N-A-N. Terry Mckiernan is the founder of Bishop Accountability, who are the archivists, the repository for all of the documents that are being generated and or produced concerning sexual abuse globally and the cover-up of it globally. Over 9 years ago, this courageous survivor known as John V. Doe brought this case against the Vatican. And he did so both because he had been abused by a known offender, and he and we realized that for 20 years all roads on the cover-up and the responsibility had led to Rome. And now for 9 years, this courageous survivor has been both patient and persistent in demanding answers from the Vatican, because it is our belief, and the evidence has shown for decades, that it is the Vatican, also known as the Holy See, that is in control of all matters pertaining to the employment and the control and the retention and the removal of offending priests.
So what we have in front of us at this point is documentation of 3 sorts. One, they have produced proof of their pattern and practice of secrecy. They require secrecy. Secrecy is required with respect to child sex abuse from the top down. These documents further support that. Secondly, they have made it very clear that they're not necessarily going to give us everything they have. We know from their practices that there are documents available between the Servites, which is the order involved here, and the Holy See, and in the secret archives of the Holy See, that certainly were not produced in this batch of 1,800 pages of documents. But finally, what they provided us is letters that show that in Rome there was knowledge of the abuse by Andrew Ronan of our survivor John V. Doe, and that knowledge goes back to the late 50s into the early 60s. There are 2 documents that are worth looking at for reporters. I think you're going to mention them, Jeff, but they're 54 and 55 in their numbering system, and basically they establish that secrecy is mandated from the top, that Andrew Ronan was part of the system that the Holy See controls, that they controlled him specifically, and that he could not possibly have left his position where he was abusing children in the 3rd location. He couldn't possibly have left that position without direct decisions by the Holy See and the Pope himself. So these are historic documents. It's the first time they've ever had to produce anything like this, and they support our theory of the case.
The
brave survivor in this situation, in his highly important but very local experience, has taken us into the inner sanctum. And it's never going to be an inner sanctum again as a result. Now, we see command and control here, but we also see that we see a very, very fast return of this priest to the lay state, as it's called. It almost never happens this quickly. And when I look at these documents, having looked at many other documents pertaining to the laicization of priests, my read is that this simply could not have happened this quickly without other sources of documentation that were not released on Friday. So this is part one, but there are parts that follow.
The question is how do the documents show that, in our view, the Vatican, the Holy See is in command and control? Under employment rules, the employer is the one that's in control, and the question is, who is the employer here? We believe these documents show that the protocols, the policies, and the law, and the interpretation and enforcement, and the authority for all of those, from this 22 document to the 62 document to the present, all demonstrate that it all goes to one place, and that is to the top of the hierarchy, and that is to the papacy, that is to the Holy See.
Jeff, can I add something to that?
Yes.
Under the law of Oregon, which controls in this case, an individual employee can have multiple employers. And our position that's in our papers and that the court has agreed with us, and that's why we got this discovery, is that the Holy See is in control and specifically controls when an abusing priest is going to stay in position or be removed from that position. That level of control, that direct control over Andrew Ronan himself, is documented in the papers we've received, but it will be even further documented in the papers they have obviously withheld about his laicization. So the question is not who is telling him when he has a coffee break. That's not the law of Oregon. The law of Oregon is an employer can retain control over certain areas of an employee's obligations. The Holy See has obviously retained control over whether or not a child sex abuser stays in position or not, and what are the criteria for determining how long a perpetrator stays in their position. It's how to avoid scandal. These documents prove that, and so for any test of employment in the state of Oregon, the Holy See has retained and never relinquished control over child sex abusing priests and whether or not they are in position or not.